Before I hit the gavel, I have to say that's absolutely amazing that nobody had to raise their hand and it got absolutely quiet. So thank you so much. We're going to quickly, I know we're on TV, but we said we would do a quick mic check. So if everybody would speak into your mic to make sure that you can be heard. Mr. Brady, would you start and bring it around?
Chris Brady, District 7.
Linda Duncan.
Chuck Hadaway.
Debbie Westland.
David Jones.
Carol Haddad.
Donna Hargens.
I think I would like to just ask for the technical crew to take a look at the acoustics here, because some of the voices are hard to hear in my experience up here. Thank you.
We will. We're trying to do better tonight, but we know we still have some work to do. So having said that, welcome to the August 26th meeting of the Jefferson County Board of Education. At 4 o'clock today, the board conducted a work session to discuss telecommunication devices, and we had about 8 principals there. We talked for 90 minutes, and it was a wonderful conversation. So I thank the principals again for being there and sharing information with us. At this time, if we could stop and focus our thoughts on why we're here for our traditional moment of silence, please. Thank you. If you would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Vice Chair Haddad will read our vision statement.
All JCPS students graduate prepared to reach their full potential and contribute to our society throughout life.
Thank you so much. At this time, I will accept a motion to approve the minutes of the August 12th meeting. Motion, Mr. Brady. Second, Mr. Hadaway. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much. Now we're going to move to recognitions and resolutions, and I believe at this point I'm to introduce Dr. Hensley. Dr. Hensley.
Dr. Hargens, Board Chair Diane Porter, and members of the Jefferson County Board of Education. This evening, we have the honor of recognizing the Jefferson County Public School District physical education teachers who have completed the training and rigorous examination process to earn their National Director of Physical Activity certification. They now have the expertise necessary to implement a successful, comprehensive school physical activity program for students, staff, and family. Board Chair Diane Porter, please come forward to congratulate the teachers in District 1. Keisha Nail from Breckenridge Franklin Elementary School. Catherine Cuneau from Lincoln Elementary School. Jennifer Zender Carter from Carter Traditional Elementary School. Board Member David Jones, Jr., please congratulate the teachers in District 2. Chris Corbin from Hawthorne Elementary School. Dan Johnson from Field Elementary School, and Janet Kanzinger from St. Matthews Elementary School. Board Member Debbie Westland, please congratulate the teachers in District 3. Carrie Rogers from Chansey Elementary School. Candace Foster from Cameron Middle School, and Cecilia Lokitz from Zachary Taylor Elementary School. Board Member Chuck Hadaway, please come forward to congratulate the teachers in District 4. Susan Dake from Wellington Elementary School. Robin Ratliff from Greenwood Elementary School, and Erica McGowan from Johnsontown Road Elementary School. Board Member Linda Duncan, please congratulate the teacher in District 5, Kara Springer from Olmsted Academy North. Board Member Carolyn Haddad, please congratulate the teachers in District 6. Shemaine Bridges from Rangeland Elementary School, Chris Edge from Rangeland Elementary School. Board Member Chris Brady, please come forward to congratulate the teacher in District 7, Ryan Connor from Tully Elementary School. This concludes our recognitions for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hensley. I want to say briefly that in our strategic plan, we talk about celebrating learning. So tonight we have indeed celebrated teachers that have gone above and beyond. So thank you so much for being here and for all that you do for the children for the Jefferson County Public Schools. I will entertain a motion to accept the recognitions. Ms. Westland, second. Mr. Brady, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you so much. The consent calendar and Dr. Hargan's report. So we'll start with Dr. Hargan's report, please. Oh, and for the benefit of those who do not want to be with us for the entire evening, there's homework that you can work on now. School has started. Thank you so much for being here. Dr. Hargans, we will now go with the superintendent's report, please.
Thank you, Chair Porter and members of the board. It's my pleasure to call to your attention a few items of special interest. August 20th marked the start of the 13-14 school year, and we had a very smooth opening. On Tuesday, the first day, the bus compounds cleared at 6:55. On Friday, they cleared at 5:37, which was 30 minutes earlier than the fourth day of school last year. Today, day 5, they cleared at 5:33. Finally, as of today, the fifth day, the official student enrollment for the district stands regular ed students 93,250, which is an increase of over 400 students than last year. And we also have 2,185 ECE self-contained students, 1,074 special state agency school students, and 4,781 early childhood students will be joining us next week. And if you do that math, that's 101,290 students and growing. I'm happy to report that Louisville Linked was up and running this week and actually connected the needs of students with services in the community. I also want to mention that we are in the process of developing draft timelines. That is also a part of the Districts of Innovation. But along with the Districts of Innovation, we're developing draft timelines for developing the next innovative school in the Jefferson County Public School System. And again, the community will become involved in the design of that school. We will narrow the designs and actually bring it to the Board of Education for approval. I just want to mention that a boarding school is just one of countless ideas that are being talked about in the community about possibilities for the next innovative school in Jefferson County. An important component of the strategic plan are measures, success measures and leading indicators. So I wanted Dr. Dossett to call up a dashboard. Okay. See it work. Okay, there you go. So I just want to get everyone used to a format. Obviously, our strategic plan is Vision 2015, and there are 4 focus areas. So what this dashboard will allow our board and the public to do is to click on each of the focus areas and be reminded of the success measures and leading indicators that go with each focus area. So we know that we will not receive results for the success measures until probably the last week of September. But I wanted to give you an example of 2 of the leading indicators. One of the leading indicators under focus area 1, which is increased learning, is attendance. So when Dr. Dossett clicks on attendance, and all, what you will be able to see is month to month comparing 2 school years, how we did in attendance. So when we get to the end of the first month, an extra bar will be added so that you can monitor how we're doing with attendance. And of course, attendance is a leading indicator that is related to the success measure of increased learning. If students are in school, they're going to learn more, obviously. The other, and then you can also click on that and get up-to-date school-by-school information. So you can actually see for the whole entire school year the difference between 11 and 12 and 12-13 for every month for every school in the system. If you go back to that page of leading indicators, one of the leading indicators under increased learning is the last one, which is how many items in the curriculum management audit have actually been implemented. And I just want to, and Bob Radowski will do a report on that tonight, but I just wanted to connect that leading indicator of how many actions are completed in the curriculum management audit with increased learning. Because the whole point of the curriculum management audit was to give us very specific strategies and ways to align so that we can break the correlation that you sometimes see without intentional effort between poverty and low achievement. So we know that the whole point of the curriculum management audit and implementing those action steps were to be intentional about breaking that correlation. So every time we do a report, this will be updated so you have the most current information about that. So what I wanted to do again is give you 2 examples. So in my superintendent's report for this school year, I will always refer back to the strategic plan, back to the success measures, and back to the leading indicators and provide information. But this will be available on a website so that you can look at it anytime you want to, and the public can look at it as well, so that everyone is aware that we're also measuring what we're doing. So thank you, Dr. Dossett. So Chair Porter, that concludes my report. I present the consent calendar for your approval.
Thank you, Dr. Hargens. Are there any items on the consent calendar that need to be pulled down for further discussion? Mr. Brady?
Item V.M.
Okay, that's the approval of the comprehensive educational financial planning and management calendar, correct? Any other items, Mr. Hadaway?
V.R.
That would be the approval of the first amended memorandum of agreement for Blackacre. Okay, any other items? Okay, thank you so much. We'll start with item M, which is the approval of comprehensive educational financial planning and management calendar for fiscal year 2014-15. Ms. Harden, our Chief Financial Officer.
Hello. My first concern about looking at this calendar is the one that within the rationale for the agenda item, it says comprehensive education financial planning and management calendar includes activities and deadlines for action by the board, superintendent, and so on. And by looking at this calendar, I do not see any deadlines actually listed. And therefore, it seems to me to be an incomplete calendar because it's hard for me to find out when certain things are due by looking at this calendar. I see one of my other concerns is that we're, for example, on January 14th, we're due to approve a draft budget, but I don't know when that is actually going to be submitted to us before approval. And these are, to me, that leads to an incomplete calendar for me, because I like to know when things are going to be submitted to us, make sure we have adequate time to be able to review it, to make sure we do our due diligence and make competent decisions on that.
The calendar itself is to provide you and the staff, because this is distributed to all departments that are involved in these processes. But it is to provide a general idea as far as the month that we intend to have this item either to the board or working within the departments. Because every line item on there is dependent upon when we receive data from maybe a particular department. So at the time we prepare this is to give an idea of when it's going to be and to put it on the radar of each of the departments. But you will be provided more specific dates as we get closer to those time frames. So right now in January, we know we will be distributing the budget information to you, but we don't know specifically at what time, and that depends upon when we receive all the data input from all departments.
I can understand that, but I know that one of my concerns upon coming onto the board earlier this January, that is, as soon as I was sworn in, then I was asked to make decisions upon the draft budget without, in my view, adequate time to actually review the information. And I want to make sure that we don't do that, or we continue that practice. And by looking at this calendar, there's nothing in here that shows me that we are going to change that and for that issue not to happen again.
The superintendent has directed that we make sure the board is informed in enough time that they have time to discuss it through a work session or discussion before you actually approve the budget. So that is one area that we definitely will ensure that the board has time to review prior to actually approving the budgets.
Okay, and again, I guess coming back to this, to me, I have a problem with approving this this calendar without having further information and detailed information. I'd like it if we can have this calendar resubmitted to us upon our next meeting with more detailed information, and even if they're estimates, to give us those estimates and give us a more thorough understanding of when we can expect to see things, when we can act on them, when the deadlines actually are, because some of our deadlines are different because of the size of our district as opposed to what the state mandates.
Right.
So, and that was certainly the case when we came on board. So that's some of the concerns that I have. I mean, this kind of folds into a larger concern for me about how information is presented to the board and making sure that we have adequate time to be able to make and to review the information, review that data, and make those decisions. I think that an example of today when we had, it seems to me, adequate time to review this change in policy regarding mobile telephones is a good step in that direction, and I'd like to see us to continue to go down that route with other areas as well. So I guess my motion at this point would be to have this resubmitted at our next meeting with more detailed information.
I can certainly do that. Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones?
If I could just add to Mr. Brady's comments, I think I'm grateful for the presentation of management planning reports and checklists. It's often very useful for a board to not ask for special dog and pony show, but to see the actual working documents, which I think is what we have here. But I agree wholeheartedly with Mr. Brady that at least as a new board member, it's been very difficult to glean from the enormous amount of information that we're presented with what is really important. And in the case of the financial planning documents, there's so much complexity to to school finance. There's a lot for everybody to learn and keep up with. And we've also chosen as a board, I'm not sure the community knows, but we decided not to have a finance committee. We wanted to have all the board members knowledgeable about what's going on, because we think with the issues that are facing us, it's critical that everybody is involved and up to speed. So I guess I would call for maybe something a little different from more detail. I would call for information that gives us a better understanding of the sort of the timetable of financial decisions, when we're going to be asked to decide, and then exactly as Mr. Brady said, some thought, some different thinking about how to have the work sessions come in so that we can really get up to the speed we need to get to.
All right. And I will say some of that information we do provide on the planning calendar, but we certainly, this has more items than what the planning calendar does, but we can put dates actually to the majority of these items.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. So if I understand correctly, this is not time sensitive, so we can bring it back to the next board meeting with more information for board members to see prior to voting. Is that
Yes,
correct?
We have enough time. I mean, it is a requirement that we submit this to KDE after your approval, but we do have time to resubmit.
Okay, thank you. And the next item that we pulled down was item R, the approval of first amended memorandum of agreement for Blackacre State Nature Preserve. Dr. Hensley and Board Member Hadaway.
Yes, I'll just be brief. I want to try to wrap my head around this agreement. I want to see, can I have just a historical perspective? And I want to ask Board Member Haddad, I may be wrong with this, but did you have some experience with this group as well? Yeah. So I'm just trying to get a visual about what happens, how often are educational components happening there, and what's it look like for us?
Well, Blackacre, this particular revision is an agreement to meet out there every year between the Kentucky Nature Preserves Organization, the Commission, the Blackacre Conservancy, and people in academics and JCPS to review their educational programs. And what we try to do is we have students that go out there. We have an education program. We have Dr. Thompson out there who works with kids and helps to coordinate events so students get to come out and be learn all kinds of things at the nature preserve. We have a building there where they get an opportunity to go through and learn about different artifacts and those kinds of things. I don't know the exact numbers. I would have to check on how many students we have out there. Dr. Thompson may know, but I can certainly get you that information.
Do students do this kind of interaction on a field trip or?
Generally on a field trip, yes. We have had programs out there that were around summer co-op opportunities, farming programs, and other activities where students in a community garden out there. There's a lot of different activities and a lot of different purposes that people go out there. Also, certain groups like Boy Scouts and others have utilized that facility before.
Okay. Do you have anything to add?
No, it's been a great place for our students to go. In fact, at one time we had someone, David Wicks, was living out there and taking care of it. And the kids were going out there and had field trips, and it was really wonderful. It's just the way it was way back when. Judge Macaulay Smith and his wife donated it to the state, and then we've been using it. And the kids in this district, I'm sure we have the data on how many field trips are taken out there and how the kids have really enjoyed it.
Thank you both.
Mr. Brady.
I just want to add to that. It is one of the few state nature preserves that we have within the urban city limits, and it is, and I'm pretty partial to it because it's in my district, but it is a very nice and beautiful preserve that's out there, and it's part of the original Tyler settlement, if memory serves. So it's very important that it's a very important resource that we keep active, and I think it's a great educational opportunity for our kids.
And Dr. Thompson is a naturalist out there, helps to design the programs and works with these organizations to ensure that it remains a really effective place for learning.
Great.
Thank you. What we have agreed to do is to vote on the consent calendar minus item M, which is the approval of the comprehensive educational financial planning and management calendar. So is there a motion to receive the consent calendar? Mr. Jones, second. Mr. Hadaway, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. There are no action items this evening. We will move down to the discussion item. The first item is the progress report on the curriculum management audit recommended actions. Dr. Hargens, Dr. Radowski.
And I'll just add before Dr. Radowski began that remember in the 11-12 school year in August, the board approved a curriculum management audit, and we actually got results on January of 2012. So that's how long we've had the recommendations and the action steps from the audit. So I will let Dr. Radowski give a summary of where we are.
Chairperson Porter, board members, Dr. Hargens, I'm very pleased to be here tonight to do our quarterly report on our progress on the curriculum management audit report. If you remember, there were 167 recommendations made in 10 areas. And actually, if you look at this, these are the overarching 10 areas, and they ranged from reorganizing the district and job descriptions to, a new planning process to new instructional best practices, to evaluation, to equal access, to aligning district and building level resources. But there are 167 of these recommendations. These recommendations were given in January of 2012, as the superintendent said. We actually reorganized that spring, and the new cabinet team basically came together at the beginning of the summer of 2012, and then we started work on the recommendations. If you look, this is what we have reported since starting in basically July of 2012. Our first quarter report was in October, and now we're in August, and this is our fourth report. And you will see a couple things. First of all, you will see that we have basically started action on most of the 167 recommendations. The second thing is you will see that every quarter we sort of move toward completing more of the actions in the curriculum management audit. And I will have a summary of what we've done in this past quarter to help put more green on this table, okay? And so, I feel that I and the team feels that we are making progress in this area. If you look at each of the 10 recommendations and where we are, there are only 2 of the recommendations in which we haven't started everything. One is recommendation 1 around, job descriptions, reorganization, that kind of thing, and recommendation 7, which is around, I believe it's around monitoring in instructional practices. And you will see that recommendation 10 is where we have the most green, and that's because we've been through a budget process with the curriculum management audit as the guide. So number 10 about having safe resource schools is the one where we've made the most progress. What have we done in the last quarter? You will see that we have been, and you do this almost on a regular basis without knowing it, either through the policy committee and then bringing it to the board for the first reading and then the second, but we're reviewing and revising and adopting board policies. You will see that we've developed a comprehensive student assessment plan for this school year. There were professional development opportunities offered this summer. We have Louisville Linked up and running, which the superintendent mentioned in her opening remarks, and we negotiated a new teacher's contract, which was part of recommendation 10. So we really had quite a productive quarter. There's just a couple things that I want to clear up. You got this in your handout, and there was some question as to what the coding meant, okay? And I just want to say, if you see something in bold on each of the recommendations, we have something called a smart sheet. and this is the Smart Sheet report. If you see something in bold letters, we felt at the beginning of this process that this represented a preceding event, that items must be completed. This item has to be completed before others can be initiated. Okay, so the boldness in this report means that. If you see something in red, that is a report that has come to you as part of a board report. And so you can monitor what the actions are. The little dots that are sort of in the next to last column to the right, the red, green, and yellow, that is the estimate of the cabinet members, you know, sort of feeling like whether they've completed it or whether they're in progress or whether they haven't started it yet. So I wanted to clear that up. And then the last thing is that, and like this was mentioned once again in the superintendent's remark, this is part of the leading indicators of focus area 1 of our strategic plan on increased learning. And we will not only have this graph in there, but we will have that previous sheet also as a link. So you'll be able to click on August of 2013 and basically go back to this kind of report, you know, out there in the community. And with that concludes my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. And if I can't answer it on specific things, my cabinet colleagues sitting behind me better be able to answer their areas. So.
Mr. Brady and then Ms. Duncan. Mr. Brady.
This is a softball question, so no need to go to the bench for this one. On the actual report where we talk about items being in red and bold, would you also maybe create us a small legend on that report that just says that? That way, if anybody looking at that, not just us, but anybody from the outside public looking at that has an idea of what that actually means, and rather than having to refer back to this.
I'll be happy to.
Thank you. It'd be nice if it's more self-contained.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ms. Duncan.
I've wondered about this all along. I know on recommendations 2, 4, and 6, there's a reference to the written curriculum and what we're doing with written curriculum. We don't have a district written curriculum. We have standards that everybody builds curriculum around, but how is it we're measuring this? Because every school has the authority to have its own curriculum, and every SBDM council has. So how is it that we're measuring this? Because it says we're making progress in those 3 areas on 2, 4, and 6, but I'm still trying to figure what we mean by the curriculum.
Well,
I mean, this is a curriculum management audit on a district that doesn't really have a curriculum that everybody follows the same way. We have standards, we have our benchmarks, we have the common assessment, but we really don't have that common curriculum. Every school is teaching it at the same time, same place. So how are we measuring this?
Well, I'll take a stab at it, and if I'm wrong, I hope Dr. Hensley will come up here and bail me out. Okay. The curriculum management audit talked about written, taught, and tested curriculum, and the more we get those 3 things aligned, the better a district we should be. So on the written part, you have standards, which are expectations. There is a curriculum map in which schools are being asked to take this chunk of each standard at each grade level and teach it in that period of time. And then we have benchmark assessments that measure the progress of the kids. Now, what books they use and what supplemental materials they use, teachers can go to a tool called SITS that has that material in it, or they could develop their own or whatever. But in the concept of what is tight and what is loose, the tightness is these are the standards we are expecting you to teach at this grade level, in this particular order because of the map and the like curriculum sequence, the sequence of how it should be, and like how we're tested. Then those maps are to cover the whole year, the whole year, and the looseness is how does the teacher get there, basically using, I believe, the DIP planning process, the Deep Implementation Planning process, where each student, the school has data on each student, and they vary how they present that material to each student based on where the student is to get them up to proficiency. Now, if I stumble, Dewey, wherever you are, you can come up and save me, okay? But I think that that's what the written curriculum means. That, I mean, it's the standards along with the maps, along with here's the suggested curriculum materials that can help you with this. You can go and find some other stuff, but that's what we would like you to do. And I think that's what they mean by written curriculum.
So we really don't have a written curriculum. We're really talking about standards. And every time we make a reference to...
There is no, quote, book that lines up to the Common Core.
I wonder...
There he is. Here's my saving hero.
I just came up to compliment Bob. Really, if we could give Bob a big round of applause. What Dr. Radosky said is exactly right on. What we've tried to do is really strengthen the tools that we give schools through our curriculum maps, which take the curriculum, take the standards, and provide a curriculum along the way with recommendations, with benchmarks along the way that aim our schools toward district-wide assessments, so that we can begin, for really the first time and with a lot of coherence, start to measure where students are, start looking at entire schools where we can help and support them. So in a way, the what we teach is exactly, as you say, Ms. Duncan, the standard. I mean, we're aiming toward those standards. That's what we're looking to teach. And what we've done is provide the schools with the how they teach it. They own the how part. So if they choose Singapore Math, for example, if that's the program, the tool that the SBDM and that school wants to use, then we support them entirely. We ask them to align that with the curriculum mapping system we have, with the resources that come with that, with everything, and then at various points through the year, we have them create formative assessments till we get to a certain point where we ask them to assess kids in that subject area so we can get a picture, a snapshot. And we've created a data analysis team that will look at those assessments and give schools objective feedback on what we see inside their schools. So they create the diagnostics. The teachers along the way do formative assessments up to that measuring stick, and then we say, okay, this is how you've taken those standards and this is how well the kids have mastered them. And it gives them a chance to see how the tools are working that they've selected, to see where they need to make adjustments, and using the DIP, the Deep Implementation Planning process, they can name and claim individual kids and groups of kids and give them even extra support around those standards.
It just seems to me like it's a misnomer. It should be standards based, or standards somehow or other in here, instead of talking about curriculum all the time, because we always have to translation standards, and I wish we didn't have to do that.
Yeah. Some of what's happened is really you're exactly right. The language is kind of outdated at this point. The policies and the things that have happened in the past have defined curriculum one way, when in fact we really need to be talking about standards. And in order to be really successful in the Common Core era, we have to look at that differently. We have to truly be about standards-based. We have to be competent and/or proficient on those standards, and how you get there, again, as Bob said, that's really owned by the school.
Well, Dr. Hensley, you have a state perspective. Do other districts have one curriculum for math and one curriculum for English, and so that task of aligning everything is simpler for them, or are they in the same situation that we're in, where different schools are within a district are teaching, are basing their standards on different curriculum?
It's all across the spectrum. There are really small districts that outline almost day by day exactly what their schools should do, and challenge the SBDMs to accept that. And they will take them through in effect, a curriculum, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, a scope and sequence that they follow. And then there's other places that really leave it up to teams of teachers to look at the standards and develop the curriculum along the way. And you can find that, you can find extreme examples. I can think of two right now across the state of Kentucky where they're that much different. Now, there are places that do a lot of what we do, which is provide tools, use SITs and other online kinds of tools that teachers can select that says, look, if you follow this sequence, it'll get you to this standard the right way, and then you can measure whether you're getting it right, whether your kids are actually mastering the standard.
Okay. Well, I guess there's no hope for fixing that.
It's complicated.
I will say this, Ms. Duncan, that the Common Core, the descriptions in the Common Core are much clearer than they have been in earlier versions of standards that we've had. It is much clearer what the expectations are, I believe, of teaching at each grade level, what needs to be done.
One thing the Common Core...
And there's less repetitiveness around a skill.
One thing the Common Core has done, for example, has gone all the way back to kindergarten and defined standards at kindergarten first and second, when in the past, Kentucky's core content only started at third grade. So you had to figure out what happened, what you needed to do in your curriculum. It was a void that you had to fill to see if you could get the students to standard by third or fourth grade. So it's still very much a challenge because we have SBDM and we have clear standards we're supposed to meet. So there's really a contradiction almost there. That's why we're hoping as a district that we can truly define the what of curriculum, and the schools can focus, be free to focus on the how and what resources and tools they use.
Just looks like a big task when everybody has a different way to get there. And I mean, I can understand for the people who did the curriculum management audit, their expectation is that I feel like everybody is teaching the same thing all the way through, and then you keep all that aligned and it'll all work out just fine. But we have a lot of other issues that cloud that up. So, but it's standards.
Yeah, so. And just one other thing, you know, we do have a mobile district, and so it is very important. These curriculum maps are very important, so that at least the sequence of what's being expected to be taught has a standardization across the district, because kids do move. They might be in building A today, they'll be in building B next week, and we don't want too much repeating of the same, you know, subject. You know, like we want progress to go on.
And what we've attempted to do is actually reduce the number of district mandated assessments so that teachers could spend less time on district mandated assessments, but make those fewer assessments more meaningful, more targeted toward the standard, more perfectly aligned, congruent with the standards. And we're asking the schools to be full participants in that, so we can really look at where everyone is at the same time. We can do what a lot of great organizations do. We can benchmark. We can look at where there's excellence in our district. We can see across the board exactly where we need to put more resources, where we can find models that we can look at. It would truly give us a level of coherence and cohesion that we haven't had in the past. Some of that because of the way SBDM works around curriculum, the very thing you put your finger on.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you. I don't know whether this is for Dr. Radowski or Dr. Hargens, but the curriculum management audit, as I understand it, is being used as a kind of an instigator for change and reorganization. And what we're doing right now is kind of tracking progress in change management. And the report addresses this on a kind of a quantitative scale, percentages of items that are completed. But there's huge variation in the items. Some of them, like revised policies, are about kind of administrative activities that can be cleanly checked off, and others, like align spending with student achievement goals, or apply, I think one of them is apply cost-benefit analysis related to the effects of school choice on diversity, are very complicated qualitative measures. And so I guess what I would like would just be kind of a summary of how, Dr. Hargens, you think we're doing qualitatively in the change management that the curriculum management audit pointed us toward.
I'd be happy to. And actually, what I'd like to also remind everybody is that when we received that 500-page document in January of 2012, that we actually, remember, we got the preview in October that said the most important thing to do to move this district forward is to reorganize. So we gave So we did that with a separate organizational review. But when the whole document was presented in January of 2012, that actually became what informed the strategic plan. So the 36 strategies are really a summary of what's most important to do in the strategic plan. So that informed it, along with research-based practices. Like, one of the things Dr. Hensley's going to talk about is extended learning. Every effective school has extended learning time. And the board, of course, committed to that, and Dr. Hensley's going to talk to plans about it. So I would say informing the strategic plan was the most important thing, along with the reorganization. And then you come down to repurposing funds to touch the desks of the students. So moving resource teachers, now goal clarity coaches, into schools, making sure that there are assistant principals, making sure that we have boots on the ground in schools, I would say would be the huge differences that have happened in 2 years that would, from January till now, it really was a catalyst for all of that happening. It would have never happened that quickly without the curriculum management audit. So the huge things are the reorg and redistributing into resources into schools.
So if I may follow up with just one, of the 63% of the stuff that's not green, what are the big, what should we kind of think about as the undone pieces that we really ought to pay attention to?
Well, I think actually the next big things are really policies, curriculum policies that really define what Dr. Hensley and Dr. Radowski and Ms. Duncan were talking about, to really define what it is and what's tight and what's loose so that everybody understands that. So that is the next big thing that needs to happen, to make sure that what's being taught is aligned with what students are expected to learn. So, and monitoring instructional best practices. Right. Dr. Hensley talks about more effective instruction in more classrooms more of the time. So making sure that that's the next thing. And then as I look at the items, we know that building capacity within our district and our teachers and our leaders is important. So professional development is important. So we went from strategy, structures, making sure the resources are in the right places, to the discipline of execution, which is what this year is about. implementing it with fidelity, and you have to have capacity within your people. So we've got the right people in the right places. Now we've got to develop the capacity.
And we're working additionally, I think will play a big role in that, is a process of coherent planning. So we're putting in place delivery planning as a very focused way to ensure that we drive those practices, that formal monitoring of instructional practices, closing the achievement gap, equitable resources in all schools, that we truly follow that and push it using the people that we have, and through a delivery planning process, that it truly penetrate. The audit points to a disconnect between central office and school practices. So this delivery planning process, restructuring that to be more coherent, will push what we do into schools without taking them over, but empower them with some clarity about what they need to do.
And does delivery planning encompass what Dr. Hargens, if I understood you right, focused on was the gaveling down on curriculum in the sense of what the Common Core implies, and then spreading that through professional development so that the teachers are all prepared to deliver the new higher standard? Is that that's delivery?
Yeah, more
capacity?
effective instruction in more classrooms more of the time. That's how I keep summarizing it and saying it over and over to get everyone to understand. That's really what our system's around, is that more effective instruction in more classrooms more of the time.
So from a change leadership perspective, at the end of this school year, if we're going to look back and say this was a success, we're going to say there's far better understanding of the curricular standards, and we've had a great year of professional development along with all of the other student achievement related aspects and the other things that we already have underway.
Adding specifically to that priority schools, supporting priority and transformation zone schools, and closing the achievement gap in all of our schools. That by adding that, you captured the delivery planning process perfectly.
Okay, thank you very much.
Other questions? Is there a motion to receive the progress report? Ms. Duncan, second. Mr. Jones. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Dr. Radosky. Thank you, Dr. Hensley. We will move on now to the report on extended learning opportunities for 2013-14. Dr. Hargens.
And as Dr. Hensley and the principals are coming up, again, I want to point to that one of the things that we know about any effective school is that there is a plan for extended learning time to give targeted interventions to students when you know they don't know something. So what Dr. Hensley is going to describe along with the principals are the really targeted plans that our principals have put in place to give extended learning time to our students in the priority schools. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Hensley.
Thank you, Dr. Hargens. Members of the board, I want you to first notice that the rookie principal had to sit next to me. We're here to talk about our extended learning plan. As Dr. Hargens said, in order to be effective in our overall district mission of getting all students to graduate prepared, we need to look at ways to extend learning. Too often we know that really schools only have students from birth to the end of 12th grade 9% of their lives. So we have to value every single minute and look at ways that we can give kids opportunities to have their learning extended, to have it accelerated, and to do a better job instructing so that the learning is enhanced. And looking at how we can make those things happen. So thanks to the strategic plan, we have a clear vision for our work, that each student graduates prepared to reach their full potential. And we have, in our extended learning plan, we have focus areas that are targeted. I mean, we know that in this, all the principals, all the 18 priority schools that we'll discuss in just a moment, they know they're about increased learning. that they're about graduation rates, that it's college and career readiness and 21st century skills, and utilizing stakeholder involvement and engagement as a way to lead to higher achievement for students. And thanks to the board, $5 million has been invested in these 18 schools to make that happen. So these are the schools, of course, that we're working with, the 18 priority schools that over a number of years, depending which cohort they are in, have looked at all kinds of innovative and new ways to collaborate better and move kids forward. So the goal of the entire process has been to is twofold. Close the opportunity gap for students in those schools. Ensure that they have access to high achievement. And second, for us as a district to analyze and evaluate our extended learning programs so that we can determine the most effective ways in the future to continue extending learning, to see how we can take and improve all of our schools, all 155 schools, by learning from these 18 schools that we're investing into these programs, into the extended learning plans. And the process that led to this and to your all's investment is started when we responded to Dr. Hargan's charge, that we extend learning and create these opportunities for students, and that it became a collaboration between school leadership, assistant superintendents, our department, our transportation, our nutritional services and operations, and even the Kentucky Department of Education, working collaboratively around this idea of extending the school day for our students. And one challenge and one exciting thing about this is we looked to the assistant superintendents, and we looked to the 18 schools, and we asked them to submit a plan tailored to the needs of the students inside their schools. They were challenged to look at their own capacity. What could they really make happen? They were asked to look at data and ways that they could target students to get the biggest bang for the buck in terms of this $5 million investment. So each school submitted a plan that was tailored just to them and their work. Now, I had the good fortune of being able to go through all of these plans, comb through them, and see what commonalities I saw in those plans that I thought I would share with you, so you get kind of an idea of what the plans are about. Most of the after-school programs are 90 to 120 minutes long. In all of them, intervention was the key focus, and mostly they focus on reading, writing, and math standards. There's also some very intentional parts to the plans built in around college and career readiness measures and ensuring that students get opportunities to prepare for those measures and work toward those CCR measures. There's also assessment data that was utilized across the board in all the plans to identify target students. In each of the plans, they attempted to take teacher talent and classified staff and others, even in some cases community stakeholders, and figure out how to surround these kids and challenge them to improve. They also work very closely, and I just have to applaud the again, coherence of our school district, our ability for transportation and nutritional services under Dr. Razor and people like Rick Capel and others to come to the table and say, we can make this happen. This is a difficult thing logistically, but we can do this. And from day one, that has been the attitude of everyone involved. All the plans attempt to connect students with the greatest needs with the most effective teachers. One aspect of the plan is it truly is an extension of the school day. It doesn't try to always stop and start over. It looks at how it can keep teachers that know kids paired with those kids in a way that they can continue growing and to continue learning instead of starting over. There are also many of the plans, not all of them, but many of the plans add study skills components, which means they'll have repercussions long after this program is over in terms of how kids are able to acclimate themselves to learning. and a lot of the plans blend technology and face-to-face learning. So when you look at all those plans together, they start on September 16th is the proposed date of beginning all of these programs, these extended learning opportunities. So many of the programs will go up to 33 weeks long. At any one time, and this number is not totally on target. I've already made a couple of changes in looking at the numbers, but 5,130 students at any one time could be after school in our school district learning. Also, it involves about 217 teachers and 100 classified staff. And the total budget of all of those extended learning plans was $3,072,801 combined. That leaves a remainder of $1,927,199 from that initial investment. So that money is part of something else we'll be looking at to utilize with transformation schools and others after data comes out, when we can look at where we need to really target that money to see if we can extend the school day in other places. All of this is focused on improving achievement and meeting the needs of the students in the priority schools. So it's, give or take some time, about 198 extra hours of learning for individual students across our school district, which is pretty remarkable. And that certainly moves us closer to those students graduating prepared. Fortunately, you don't have to listen to me much longer about this. You can actually get to the people who know the work, who are doing the work, who are leading the efforts inside these schools to pull stakeholders together and create these great plans. And these are 4 wonderful principals, but the same could be said about all 18 of the priority school principals and the hard work that they've put into this, along with the assistant superintendents. So I'd like to introduce Faith Stroud, the principal of Knight Middle School, Bill Perkins from Olmsted North Academy, Jack Baldwin from Myers Middle School, and Katie Zeitz from Wagner High School, and also Michael Newman is here. I think we have everybody. And Michael, I left your name off the list there, and I apologize for that. It's another rookie thing for you. I've asked them to come and spend a little time talking to you about their plans, what their individual plans look like, and how that can, what impact they believe that'll have on their school and on students in their building. So who would like to start? Katie, will you get us started?
Sure. At Wagner, ours kind of has 3 major tiers to it. When we discussed it and looked at what we felt would meet our students' needs, I mean, we've been providing the standard ESS for quite a while with moderate success rates, so we tried to innovate a little bit. Our first tier is definitely the, it involves remediation, enhancement, and recovery, because they're 3 very different things. We have students that have the capacity to stay after school and take electronic courses, or even some advanced placement or some of the Project Lead the Way coursework, and do that after school. We also have students that need assistance from teachers to recover credits perhaps that they had lost as underclassmen, and they can, some of that is with teacher one-to-one, or some of it also can be electronic depending on the student's capacity. And then finally, obviously, we have standards recovery, because our students understand and monitor their own standards acquisition in math, English, science, and social studies. So those students have the opportunity on specific days, certain course types, so math or English, whatever, will be offered on certain days, and students will know what days they can stay and take advantage of those things. So that's kind of one major strand of ours. The second would be community building. It's really important to us that we offer opportunities to students that are academic in nature, but also are fun for kids that don't need to do any of those other things. They just want to be connected to school. And for many of our 9th and 10th graders, their parents like the idea of school transporting them, and they get to stay and be engaged more because they have a safe way home, and parents would much rather them get home that way than other types of public transportation in the evenings if they can't get transportation. And for some of our kids, that barrier we would like to remove for them. So we have lots of kids that are going to be involved in just enhancement types of things that are instructional, but also give them kind of something to do that they don't have to do. They just want to do because they want to be connected to an adult in the building or a community member. We have organizations like Junior Achievement partnering with us I mean, 7 counties, I could go on. We have lots of partners. Some of our hospital partners are interested in doing some of the EKG and phlebotomy certifications after school, just a bunch of really cool things. So that would kind of go in the community building piece. And then finally, because we are trying to really expand instructional technology and access to technology at Wagner, we want to extend our lab hours and offer opportunities to students that don't have equipment at home if they want to investigate things, if they want to do projects, if they want to work on things in some of our flipped classroom initiatives. Those teachers are very dependent on a lot of that stuff happening during the class time because that's when the kids have the technology, but we'll be able to check out iPads, e-readers, open labs, and extend some of those opportunities for kids. With adult supervision and support, they can also take advantage of things like ACT preparation, Study Island. All those things will happen kind of in that lab setting for students. And some just may want to come interact with technology and get some advice from a technology teacher too. So those are our 3 major strands that we plan to provide.
Thank you. Bill?
Thank you. I want to thank Dr. Hargens and the board for this very special opportunity for my school. The program that we have designed targets our students that are novice, our most at need group. And what we hope to do is provide some time for course recovery, students to work on assignments maybe that they struggle with during the course of the day with a teacher in English and math or reading and math. And so we want to provide a little bit of time there and then also go into small group instruction where teachers can work with students on with resources from the Ready Common Core and Study Island, for example, to provide lessons based around the core contents of reading and math. And our teachers will differentiate instruction using Descartes skill levels, which we're able to kind of find out how to best meet kids' needs because we do MAT testing throughout the year. So that helps us identify those areas that our students need the most support. And then finally, we want to be able to provide e-school modules based on their needs. And so teachers will monitor student work and provide assistance. And then designated students will also have time to complete Success Maker, or like our students that are ESL use a computer-based program called Imagine Learning, which has been very successful with ESL students across the country. And so we want to break it up to where our students rotate in various stations during the course of during the course of the extended learning time, so they're not all staying in one spot and doing one continual thing. This program that we have provides the opportunity to get at their individual needs by helping them on the things that they're doing there at school, but also it provides them opportunities and remediation to catch up on skills that they're behind on. We also are very excited about the opportunity that they'll have a chance to have dinner there at school. Because I always am a firm believer that when a student has a full stomach, they learn a little bit better. And so this gives us the opportunity to be with them during that time and build relationships with them at school, with their teachers and administrators. The other thing that we're real excited about too is in our program we want to have several teachers work, not just one teacher work 3 evenings a week extra. We want them, our teachers will be kind of on a rotating schedule working together, our language arts teachers and our math teachers, because in their professional learning communities, they spend lots of time. They were talking earlier about the deep implementation planning process. Our teachers spend lots of time looking at the data, planning collaboratively how to help each of our students. And so this gives us the opportunity to extend that work of that PLC to looking at all of our students and meeting their needs in this intervention time that we have after school. So we're very excited about it, and we look forward to toward the opportunity to work with our kids longer and help them improve their achievement.
At Myers, our program excuse me, is designed to address what I see as our unique need. And I determined that need last year. I took a sample population of our incoming sixth graders. They come to us from 49 different elementary schools. And I was discovered that about 8 out of 10 of that sample population were coming to us up to 4 years behind grade level in reading. So we have a significant challenge to address at Myers. And I know my staff will tell you that I remind them constantly, you can only have one priority number one at a time, and at Myers our priority number one is going to be to restoring them to grade level on reading proficiency. So we're focusing like a laser beam on literacy as our effort. And therefore, the students that we identify, which is a significant portion of the population, I see improved literacy as the tide that will lift all boats. And our other faculty members, social studies, science, et cetera, they understand that if we can get the reading level up, then the benefits of increased student achievement will extend all of the content areas. And therefore, we've selected our approach using the Read 180 program and the system or curriculum for a variety of reasons. One, it combines small group instruction along with technology-based independent practice, and it has built-in progress monitoring so that we can execute Dr. Hensley's DIP model to see where we are and evaluate the efficacy as we go along. Also, one of the things that I'm attracted to it is it's a standalone program. In the past programs, sometimes we achieve difficulty or have difficulty with establishing linkage between what goes on in the classroom and what happens in intervention efforts that take place after school. And this enables us to implement a program with fidelity, with the trained cadre that, as I say, will impact all content areas regardless of who the teacher is during the day. And with a reporting method that everybody in the school is familiar with. We think we can assess students more quickly. And I want to thank Dr. Hargens, like the others, for proposing this initiative and the board for considering it, because at Myers we're committed. We are committed to helping these children catch up, and this will give us the time in order to do that.
Thank you, Jay.
Faith started TT night, and I agree with the rest of my colleagues. Thank you again for providing us the funding and allocation for this initiative. At TT night, we looked at the data, high school dropout data, how our students performing, what our students are coming with from elementary school, and we feel confident about going into the school year with our comprehensive plan for literacy during the day, and we allocate a lot of resources. Therefore, our program is going to focus on mathematics instruction after school, primarily with our sixth grade. We've restructured our sixth grade to be the Prowl Academy, similar to how ninth grade academies operate, to really build the student capacity. Just like at Olmsted North, our students will rotate between study skill time, where we're going to teach the students how do you manage your day, how do you manage homework, but also during that time have teachers available that are certified in those content areas to help our students. When you're at a high-risk population school, a lot of times the reason why our students are not successful with homework is because they don't necessarily have the support at home to assist them. And so in talking to my parents, they're very excited about having the teachers there to assist with tutoring, one-on-one help with homework, things of that nature. But we're going to specifically teach them skills as well on how do we build capacity so that when that support might not be there, that you can still be successful. The students are also going to go through a station where they do computer-based intervention using a program called Compass Learning. We also implement MAP testing, where the students are provided a RIT score, but we'll be able to tailor their intervention because Compass Learning aligns with MAP. And so based upon their performance level, they're going to have intervention that's differentiated just for them. And then finally, we decided based upon past data analysis of other interventions within our school, we're focusing not just on math standards, but specifically the area of number sense, because we believe that's core in their foundational understanding of mathematics. So the teachers will implement hands-on, engaging math lessons that reinforce the math standards. And then going along with what Katie talked about at Wagner, understanding the importance of connectedness research. When you think about Furr, Skinner, and Spitzer, they talk about when a student is connected to their learning environment, their academic success increases. And so one of our goals is to ensure that each student who participate also is connected to a club activity in the school where they feel proud to be part of the Proud Academy, where they feel proud to be part of TT Knight Middle School, increasing their engagement because they want to be at the school, especially when we're not necessarily a magnet school. So we have to have something that entices them to be at the school. And that's, in a nutshell, what we're headed with at TT Knight.
Thank you.
Well, good evening. For the past 3 years, Western Early College's teachers have focused their professional learning community work on analyzing formative and summative assessments in order to review what they have taught, and also to identify the students that are in greatest need of intervention. And so this program is going to allow Western to continue to use combative and formative assessments, but to be able to do that on a 3-week interval in order for us to then exercise the DIP process to determine specifically which students and why will best be able to utilize our intervention program. Also systematically notify parents and give our students incentives like food and transportation in order to improve their academic performance beyond the constraints of the school day. And we've been fighting the constraint of the school day now for over 3 years and have barely seen any types of gains. And so being able to extend our opportunities to incorporate our students and to invite them back and to provide them with these incentives are very important for us. We will have 12 teachers, 3 for each content area, to focus a 90-minute lesson on standards that were previously taught in the 3 weeks. And so what I'm asking each department is to identify which contents have the most student need, which content areas, grade levels, and then tell me what do the students need to know and able to move forward. And so they will then plan a 90-minute lesson that will allow students the opportunity that if they were not on track to get back on track so they can continue their progress as they move forward in the coursework. At the end of each lesson, students will be required to demonstrate mastery in that standard. And we will then be able to monitor and track whether or not a student showed mastery and is back on track or did not show mastery and continue the DIP process to say, what do we do now? So we will not give up when a student does not necessarily get themselves back on track. Ideally, we plan to serve over 360 students per week. And we feel confident that this intensive intervention, along with the structures of notification to parents, notification to counselors, and incentives for grades, will assist Western in improving our academic performance and help students graduate prepared for college, because at Western, they all go to college.
So through this process, we, of course, have, thanks to Maria Carico, who works in Title I at Gaines, we've created a tool that will help us to track this entire process. Just a quick screenshot of that. Schools, we're really trying to support them with this tracking tool, to give them clear directions on how to track the following things: student attendance, who attends the extended school services, transportation, food services participation, and teacher payroll codes to make it easier for schools to be able to organize the teachers after school to ensure that they're compensated for the great work and the great results they're going to get. At the end of it, we will be, the monitoring of the progress of students is very, very important in 2 ways. The first way it's important is for the school themselves to monitor that progress and see how things are working and see if they can make adjustments in these 33 weeks. If kids can move out of the intervention, or if other students need to move into the intervention, that will be available to them. So that's the first way. And the second is at the end of all this, how will we know if students have shown progress? And we'll be able to look, by tracking really well the students that participate, we'll be able to look at their achievement scores down the road and see how well they did, to see if they're able to meet those proficiency standards on the KPREP. So I'd like to open it up to give you an opportunity to ask questions, particularly of the principals about their programs. I provided you with a short description of what we talked about in terms of the goals and an overview of all 18 schools and just a quick bulleted picture, snapshot of what their program looks like and what they're focusing on. So any questions or comments?
Ms. Duncan?
I have a couple of questions. In identifying the teachers to serve in extended learning, how will that be done? Will it be the same way in all schools, or will you have a different approach to this? Because it's not going to be, I can see it's not teacher record. It's something else. So how will you determine the teachers who stay?
I can answer, at least on behalf of TT Knight. First thing, we look for teachers who are strong, who will be able to support the students, especially we know we're trying to service students who have barriers that need to be met. But also we're looking for teachers who are committed and on board, shared with the staff what the vision of the program is, and teachers who are really excited and understand the time commitment came forward. And from there, as a principal, I have to make the most important decision, which is staffing. So we look at what are the needs for the school when determining the staffing for this program.
And what I saw across the board in all 18 plans was an attempt to really connect the best teachers in a content area to whatever that intervention is. So if it's one of the schools, for example, their entire math department is working after school to target they actually look at reducing class size so small groups of students continue working with those math teachers instead of in the full classroom. So they're able to really reduce the size and individualize the instruction after school. So I saw that across the board where there's a great variance in how many teachers are used. Some have a handful of teachers, 10. Others use 25 to 30 teachers rotating throughout the year. So much of that hinges on what the school decides to do.
Okay. I was a little in shock because for some reason this had not registered on me that this $5 million would be designated just for priority schools. I don't know, I missed that message some way or other, because we have so many non-priority kids, or we have priority kids in non-priority schools out there, and I'm just wondering, we're going to be serving kids in our priority schools, but is there anything to be done?
If I could clarify, it's not just for priority schools. So the $5 million is for, as Ms. Duncan, you're saying, priority kids. The transportation is for priority schools. Right. But there are $2 million left that will be distributed once we get the data the last week of September, based on the needs of schools and priority kids everywhere. So the $5 million is not just for priority schools.
Okay, that's what I was getting the feeling that it was designated primarily for priority schools, and I had thought that it was going to be an effort to serve every child that has to have extended learning, if we can do that, because I know in some schools you will have kids who don't need extended learning opportunities. Even in the priority schools, you'll have kids who won't need that extended opportunity, but we have kids in other schools that will need that. So that's clarified, and that's what I appreciate. I wanted that because I was thinking we were going to miss a bunch of kids that way.
We have priority schools everywhere. So we know that 36%, is that right, Dr. Hensley, right, is 36% of our priority school kids are in priority schools.
If we
just focus on them, it's 64% that we would miss.
Wow.
So
Amen.
Schools will have the opportunity to do a plan and compete according to need for the rest of the money. Okay. But again, we wanted to get these schools rolling on September 16th.
Okay, and thank you all for being here tonight and for helping clarify all of this for us, and I know we're all looking forward to extended learning opportunities for our kids. I think it's great. Thank you.
Ms. Westland?
Yeah, I just have a comment. Well, I do have one question. Remind me the DIP process. Deep, implementation
Planning.
process. Okay.
It's to name and
If
claim
you all
the
remembered
kids.
that, I didn't. What?
It's to name and claim the kids. It's teams of teachers working to identify the kids who are below the standard and creating a plan that they articulate for how they're going to move them across the standard.
That's exactly what you all are doing. And I thank you all for being here. And I appreciate that this has been flexible for each of you, because each of you have described what would fit your population you're thinking about. From what you're doing, Mike, as a brand new principal at Western, but you've been there a while, but it sounds like you've already got it well underway, and everybody else has, like, the literacy focus, you know exactly, and knowing where, I always wondered if you all know where your students come from. You know, 49 schools, how can you, you know, track all the inputs that are there coming in? So I'm that's interesting. I'm glad to hear that you all look at that. What?
It's a unique challenge, but
I'm
we
sure.
embrace it.
Well, you do, because the kids are now in your building. Now they're yours, and you know where they come from, but you know where they're going to go once they've been with you, and that's really good. And I just want to add that one of your colleagues would like to have been here. Stacy Edelman from Westport called me today and apologized that she couldn't be here, but she's also very excited and has a well-thought-out plan and is anxious to go as soon as she gets the call that you're ready. So, thanks.
Mr. Jones?
Just two comments. First, I am very pleased to see the range of activities. That suggests to me that the goal of flexible funding to get to the kids in the way that would actually benefit them is being rolled out. And, you know, second, I think it looks like most of our media representatives have left, but I want to call the community's attention to the fact that one of the real achievements in the new contract between JCPS and JCTA was this flexible funding to meet the children where they were with extended days. And it's a pretty interesting experiment. I don't know of anything like it that I've ever heard of going on anywhere else in the country where there's this much flexibility in a big urban district. So, you know, I just want to thank you all for going at it, you know, quickly, and look forward to seeing the results.
Mr. Brady?
Again, I just want to echo my colleagues' comments about appreciate the wide range of options you're giving our students. But I just have a couple points of clarification, and because it sounded like I heard something different than what was just discussed. But so these interventions, this after-school time, is targeted for those kids that are basically gap kids, to be able to fill in the gap. I just want to clarify that, because it sounded like, you know, we were talking about students being connected to the community, which is fine, but you know, staying after school to be, you know, for club activity or extracurricular activity and being able to use the free transportation at the end of the night was not what the intended purpose of this was. I just want to clarify that that's not the case.
That's very true, sir. And it's the DIP process that's at the center of this, where you identify those kids. Now, some of the schools are taking advantage of the fact that they have this after-school program. They're bringing other kids in. They're widening their scope, but still at the core of it is the intervention part, and that's where they're. Schools are looking at ways if they can create that sense of belonging, they can pull some other kids in, that's terrific, but usually those are for peripheral activities, not for the core intervention work that they're doing.
Well, those peripheral activities is one of the things that I was concerned about, because if those peripheral activities are being brought in, which is, I agree, would be a plus, but how much is that eating into that $3 million that's allocated, or is it no impact whatsoever?
No impact whatsoever.
Okay.
In some cases, they're taking advantage of the bus that already runs.
That's what I want to make sure.
It's not denying any other student.
It was surprising when we discussed this last week, where we had allocated $5 million, and then there was an additional cost on top of that for transportation. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't scope creep that was coming into play on this, because sitting here listening to that and hearing that at just for a moment, it's like, so I need to clarify that and make sure that
That's a very good point. Yeah, it's truly the interventions that we're aiming toward, and some, principals really good principals look at ways to expand that scope and make connections, but this process is about the DIP. It's about naming and claiming that group of kids.
And with the wide range of services that we're providing, it seems to be that it would be a challenge to be able to measure the progress based off of that wide range of strategies and interventions that are being presented. And I know that you had said, we're going to measure achievement scores down the road, but is there a specific metric that we can look at, or a specific set of metrics that we can look at as a way of measuring whether this is a pilot program?
Right.
This is not. This is all this money is coming out of our savings account, if you will, and is not recurring revenue. And so this is something that we want to make sure we're getting results on. I want to make sure that those results are based off of a specific set of measured criteria, which I can see by the wide range of services can be a challenge. Do you have that?
Yeah, data management will be able to help me with that. Bob and Dina and their shop is really working on how we use that tracking tool to get the kids in what program, what school they're in, and then we'll be able to look at ACT. Depending on their grade, we can look at their ACT and Compass scores and plan scores. We'll be able to look at their K-Prep scores. So every student that participates, think of it as a red flag next to their name that shows us they were a part of an ESS program, extended learning program at that particular school. Mm-hmm. Now, whether it's congruent or correlated, that's a little more difficult. We know we can be assured that it's correlated by the flagging of the students. We're hoping that that it's one of the things we do that increases ACT scores and graduation rates and plan and Compass and all of those. So we'll know which kids moved up and if they participated in the extended learning program.
And the other $2 million that's still outstanding, you said transformation schools for the remainder of the budget, and transformation schools meaning non-priority PLA schools that we just discussed earlier.
We've kind of looked at it as 3 tiers, as looking at how, we will, after priority schools, we have the transformation zone schools, which we will reshape after we get final scores back. So we'll know which schools that are on our watch list, and we want to really strongly encourage them to look at they have good programs to target the gap kids and move them forward, and then everyone else on top of that. So it'll just kind of spiral out.
Okay, just want to make sure we're targeted. We're no scope creep.
Gotcha.
We're keeping our focus. Right.
And that's very wise, sir.
And thank you to all of you for being here and taking the time. Thank you.
What we're trying to do is to hear what each school is doing. The board would like to know that, so thank you for being the first group that comes before us. It's important for the community to understand the opportunities that are out there for our students, so thank you so much for being here. And what I think that is extremely important is you have developed programs that are specific for the needs of your school, as opposed to taking something and saying one size fits all, because it certainly does not. So thank you for being creative in that process and for the opportunity for students to achieve differently with more time on task and different ways to approach education. And one of the things that, not to give you any pressure, but this money came from our fund balance, and we are looking at results. Board members, this is, I won't say it's an experiment, but it's about results. So not to give you a lot of pressure, but to really emphasize the fact that it's real important for us to see results. And I know all of these plans are very good, so we know that there will be positive results because you have developed it for what's individually important for your school. Now I do have a couple of requests now that I've thanked you and given you just a little bit of pressure. We have identified the schools, we have identified the students, and one of the things that I think it's important for the board to know is the demographics of the students. What do they look like by school? So Dr. Hensley and Dr. Radowski, if you all could give us that information. Because we want to know the students that we are in fact reaching out to and touching, and also it would be important for us, for me and for the board, to perhaps see the demographics of the teachers that will be reaching the students, because we want to know those teachers that are taking the extra time to do this, to work with the students. And I don't know, this is probably maybe not can do, but I'd ask anyway, if there's some way for us to get a map that shows where these students live by district, so we know how we are touching students in our districts, because that's important also, because some of us know based on the needs of our districts. So my question is this impacting the needs of the various districts, the instructional support that the students need? And I'm particularly concerned now because recently in the paper, we closed a community center that reached out for students, and that's the Presbyterian Community Center. So my concern is, what are we doing to provide services for schools who could in fact need those services? But by looking at the demographic map, we may see that we are touching some of those students. So that's why I'm making that request. And again, I think one of the slogans is no excuses, just results. We're expecting great things to happen, and we thank you so much for being here tonight. Are there any other questions from the board? Mr. Brady?
Would some say that that is critical?
It's absolutely critical that we are successful. That's my colleagues making fun of me and my word critical, because it was critical that we have a successful first day of school. And because you've done that, I am convinced that you will do this equally as well. So thank you so much for your time. So that's twice I've said the word tonight for those that are keeping up. Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Mr. Brady.
You're welcome.
Is there a motion to receive the report on extended learning opportunities? Ms. Westland, second. Mr. Brady. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Good luck. It's critical. We'll move next to the discussion agenda planning calendar. 2013-14 planning calendar. Are there any additions to or questions about the planning calendar? Mr. Jones?
I have a general comment about the planning calendar, and I think it's what I want to do is try to bring into focus, maybe have discussion if people are interested about a topic that we've talked about as a board for a while, which is how to better align the way the board spends its time with the critical issues that affect student achievement. We've had, I'll use today as an example, we've had, I think, a really good meeting today. The board got together at about 4 o'clock. We spent an hour and a half reviewing, I think, very thoughtfully the different pluses and minuses of granting waivers related to personal communication device usage, and had an opportunity to look at that particular issue from the different directions, and now we'll have a couple weeks before we have to make a decision. 2 weeks ago, we had a very different experience when we were confronted with the question of how to finance the schools for the coming year. And we arrived and had a very large amount of data that we were trying to digest, and a good bit of time pressure, and a lot of other issues. So where I guess I'm going with this is the discussion agenda planning calendar doesn't really give me enough of a sense of what's coming. It doesn't tell the community where the really critically important strategic discussions that the board is going to undertake. This goes a little bit to what Mr. Brady was getting into about the kind of the financial planning calendar. And it's a big challenge for 7 people to try to put all their different ideas and requests and everything forward. I think often when that happens, you wind up burdening the team that is trying to respond and getting responses in detail rather than coherently. So I do have a point here, which is I would like to ask Dr. Hargens, as the Chief Executive Officer of the board, which was part of the new policy description that we adopted earlier in the consent agenda, to take upon herself and for her team the task of maybe treating the board as if we were a professional learning community and had to discover what the big rocks are that we have to do in order to do our part to support the change management and the focus on student achievement, and then look at building a board calendar and communicating it to both us and the community up from that. My observation, and I'm new just like Chuck and Chris, but this organization does a great job of compliance, it seems to me. We're really all over the state standards and all kinds of rules and regulations, but it's a challenge to figure out how to change to more, to change the way we're doing things, and keeping up with it is a challenge. So I'd like to suggest that we ask Dr. Hargens to come back to us with a way of going at that. And I just throw that open for discussion.
Ms. Westland?
Are you talking about maybe over the year that there are kind of touch points along the way? It seems like what the categories of the things we talk about are achievement and the resources we use to do that. How do we do the things we just heard about, the extended learning, or digest the achievement results, which we're going to do in the next few weeks, and talk about those things at some points during the year. At the same time, we have budget points that we know we have to touch, and other things that have to do with managing school when it's in, when it's out, and the calendar and all of that. Just like Cordelia's report she's going to work on is when these financial things happen, that the planning calendar maybe could be populated with some of those things so you could see what's coming. And also, as we listen to the community, we would know what they're particularly interested in knowing about as far as us being accountable to them and what they should be seeing what we're doing. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think that's generally right. But again, I'll take tonight as an example. We had a fabulous discussion of cell phone policy. But I think it's a question for the chief executive of the district in the first instance where that ranks in the whatever, how many hours we have. Officially, we have about 50 hours together in these formal televised board meetings a year. Is that the way we should spend the time? How do we because time is finite. So that's the first question is what do we really have to do well? And certainly understanding student achievement, understanding the test results that we're about to get, understanding how we're spending extended learning hours, whatever is critical to that, and figuring out how to pay for it are two of them. But there probably are others. Human resources, long-term planning issues, things like that are on my list, but my list isn't what matters. It's what does it take to succeed? Because if we're going to be the best urban school district in America, we got to be the best board in America.
Mr. Hathaway?
Yes, and I agree with Mr. Jones, and it makes the package a little more comprehensive for me. Funding is a big issue, and what we experienced a couple weeks ago was a rookie shock for me. JCPS has done very well when they've gotten in front of issues that are coming. For instance, when we knew the test scores, the achievement scores would come back lower, we did very well in instructing not only this board but the public, and we minimized the shock. But more importantly, we prepared everybody. We prepared this board, we prepared the public for a big rock issue for us. So I would add that once those are identified as our executive, that it is a two-pronged approach, and we have the public very aware of what's coming up. Next year we'll have to talk about funding again, and we'll have the tax rate question again as it comes up annually. But to have a little more time for the public input, for us to represent those people that have elected us, I think that's a much-needed thing for us to serve all of our students well.
And if I forgot to make one point. You know, we get for each board meeting somewhere between 400 and 800 pages of preparatory material. Only a small portion is related to the big rocks. And the question is, how do we better focus time and attention? You know, facilities planning is another big issue. I mean, all of these things, we got to figure out where to work in so that we do the big stuff first and then fill in with the smaller stuff.
Ms. Westland?
I have a thing to request get on the calendar, and I think it would fit into a broader look. I don't know exactly when, but in the near future. It was on the planning calendar to do a kind of a capacity, enrollment, demographic, population analysis, kind of where people are in the district, how our schools are, what the enrollment looks like, where is it growing, where is it maybe not. I think we just need to get a good view of the facilities and how they're being used, and so we can make some planning, whether it's short-term or long-term planning. And that would involve, in my view, it would involve Bob, it would involve Ralph, it would involve whoever else that would involve. Facilities and assignment, I would guess. Whoever you think, Bob, just bring them. That would be good. Yeah, okay.
Mr. Brady?
And Mike. I got you. So the follow-up on Member Westland's comments, and it's something that I was thinking about discussing in this next item coming up, but I think this falls well into this. And also kind of comes piggybacking on what Board Member Jones was saying as well, was being aware of things that were coming up. Now, I think that some of us on the board, you know, in regards to Sunday's Courier Journal, a story about the possibility of having this boarding school from a public boarding school, it was discussed as a concept, one of many ideas, as the superintendent stated at the beginning of our meeting tonight, and suddenly that became a focal point of the story. But one of the things that that I was a little taken aback to was that we have a draft plan for a timeline to discuss that and getting people's inputs, and there was a couple of different draft plans that were discussed or that were sent out for review. And from a facilities perspective, we've had, I know that within Member Westland's district, over at Norton Commons, we've had an agenda item over there for having an elementary school either being built or not built, but we've had this issue that's been sitting on our facilities planning list for quite a while, yet I have seen no movement on that, and I haven't had to see any timeline on something that's an agenda item. And these are things that I would like to see incorporated within our planning calendar, where we can touch upon facilities planning, because it only seems like it comes up sporadically throughout the course of the year. I know Member Hadaway was on that committee as well, and you know, it seemed to be that there were some things that were surprising, I think, especially how they came up with his experience. And I'd like to see us do a much better job of trying to prepare for that, and also circling back on the things that we're bringing up as concerns. And I, as of right now, I just don't see that on our current planning calendar.
So I will accept a motion to accept what we have, with the understanding it's getting ready to take to make some changes to it potentially, and also what I heard you say, Mr. Brady, is a request on an update on where we are on the facilities report as it pertains to the Norton Commons Elementary School, because I think that needs to be at this point on facilities as it pertains to the calendar, but you are asking for a report on timeline and what is the process. So I think it needs to go two different places, if I've heard you correctly.
I agree with that, and I'd also like to add one other item with that is also long-term planning, as to, you know, because in where my district is, as well as Member Westland's district is, we have a lot of folks moving out to that part of the county, and it's a very fast-moving part, fast-growing area of the city. And I just would like to know what proactive approach or plan that we have at looking at expanding out there, or preparing for the growth that's going to occur in those areas, or actually is occurring in those areas.
But that I would assume would be a report versus on the calendar.
Either one.
Long-term planning, facilities would be on the calendar, but what you are specifically asking for is an update on currently what's on the facilities plan and long-range planning. Am I hearing you correctly, or am I not?
Wherever
hearing
it
you
fits
correctly?
best, because right now I just haven't heard anything regarding that. So
Okay.
my communication is more important to me as to where it ends up on the agenda.
Ms. Westland?
I was just going to say that it might make some sense to do the capacity look at it, and that might tell us where priorities ought to be. You know.
So I'm still stuck on the calendar. I'm trying to get us from the calendar to requesting reports, because what we're talking about is the calendar, some things that we want to see on the calendar, but then I hear specific requests also. Mr. Jones?
I'm talking about I think we're talking about the calendar, so we could have a discussion and report to us.
So
Is that
I
what you're
think,
talking
Yeah,
about?
I mean, because in order to get a report, we need to have it on the calendar at some point to discuss it. So I think they're kind of linked. That's where I'm going from.
My understanding is, I'm making a very general point, which is not for a particular report, but rather for a proposal for how we schedule the year and how we get items onto our calendar. And I think what you're talking about now is among the things that we've heard about before and that have been lost track of, things that you want to see come back that, in my kind of view of how we will eventually get to operating, those will fit within a longer term plan. I mean, if we're going to talk about a long-term facilities plan, the question about where individual school opportunities and, all that fits will have some context. And what I'm missing is context.
Do I have a motion to receive the planning, Ms. Duncan?
I wanted to say, I don't remember seeing on there if we were going to continue the discussion. We had to stop the discussion on magnet schools and assessment and performance of our magnet school programs and all of that. And I don't think on the calendar that we have listed that we need to continue that, because we did not finish it. We just barely got started on it.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is look at the planning calendar, make it look different so that it meets the needs of the board, and then I'm also hearing some specifics. So Dr. Hargens is making good notes about the specifics. We've heard that we wanted to look differently to meet so that we can look at it and the community can look at it and know where we're going forth. So the question is there a motion to receive what we have with the understanding that there are going to be some changes made to it based on the conversation tonight? Mr. Jones, seconded Ms. Haddad. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Now I'd like to move down to board reports and requests. Board reports and requests. Ms. Westland?
Is it on? Yeah. I just learned of something we should note tomorrow. Heather, our 15th District PTA President, is here, and as you know, they operate a very excellent clothing assistance program over by Junior Achievement, and I think, tell me if I'm right, Wave TV is going to be there for 2 or 3 hours in the morning? No. All day. And 4 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. And is it a special day of getting contributions? Is it Sam Myers is going to be Sam Swope? Wrong Sam. Be a drop-off and going to be taken to the CAP program. So it's a big day, so flip on your TV and watch Wave at some point, and we'll see the great things they're doing. And thanks for continuing that. It's an amazing effort.
Anything else under board reports and requests? Mr. Hathaway, Mr. Jones, and then Ms. Duncan.
Yeah, I want to thank Principal Cummings for her hospitality when the superintendent and I came to Eisenhower Elementary the first day of school. And then I came across a statement when reflecting on the first week of school from a teacher out of my district, and that this teacher had posted on a social media site. And I'm not going to name this teacher, but I would venture to say that this statement was a great capture of what a lot of our teachers are doing in the perspective they had with the new school year. So if you don't mind, I'll read this because I thought it was very picturesque and it was very encouraging. It's Friday. In 4 short days, I have taught them something they didn't know, pointed them in the right direction, corrected them for mistakes and poor judgment. I have given out gum, listened to endless stories, hugged and high-fived till my arms were sore. I have dried tears, tap danced through a lesson, literally, to ensure they heard and saw me, and praised them to no end for the good that we sometimes fail to recognize in these precious kids. I have given out pencils and notebooks as well as advice. I have talked every day until my tongue is swollen and tired. I am a teacher, and even though every day we all come home exhausted, I love this job, these kids, and the people I work with that share my passion.
Wonderful.
Who wants to follow that?
Ms. Duncan?
Well, I'm going to send, I have about 5 questions I think I'm going to send to Bob Radowski concerning some of the data around our new clusters and our 13 clusters and our kindergarten enrollment and our transfers and just some data like that I would love to get a picture of. So I think I will just send that to him and then have him copy everybody on what he can provide. I know Bill Perkins at Olmsted North had invited me to school last week or the week before we began school, and I had an opportunity to go to work sessions that the teachers were in, and kind of listen in on some of the things that they were preparing to do for the school year as in groups, and got to see all the staff, and it was just a great reminder to me of all the young people that we have in our schools right now and how hard they're working and preparing and how excited they are and the energy that they bring to these schools, and I just appreciated that experience. I also had a chance to meet with Councilman Welch, Vicki Welch. She has a conversation with her constituents periodically, and I like to drop in there. And it was a good time for me to talk about the tax increase among my constituents there and kind of explain many things. We just don't have enough of those opportunities to be able to come to our constituents and answer questions like that. And I just appreciate that, getting to do that. Then Saturday I stopped at Americana, where they're signing up families and kids for ESL after-school programs. And Amy assured me tonight that we would be able to deliver those after-school services much earlier than we did last year, and they were very excited about that. But they had a great turnout, 9 to 12, and a big stack of folders, and families very engaged and very hopeful that their kids can get extra help after school as they're starting to learn English.
Okay. Since last time I gave a long speech about how critical the first day of school was, it is my pleasure to say to Dr. Razor and all the staff of the Jefferson County Public Schools that you got it. You excelled. We are very proud of everybody. The first day is critical. That's 4 times. Because it sets the tone for the whole year. So I thank everybody. It's not a one-person job. I thank everybody that stepped up, the folks that put on their red shirts and went to the bus compounds, to the schools, everywhere to see to it that our students had a successful first day of school. So that's my first part of my report, because I went way too long. And for those who tried to bet how many times I said critical, I'm not telling you. So the bottom line is thank you for a job well done to everybody, because it was more important than anything that we could do at that time. So for such a time as that, we did a great job. So thank you to everyone that made that possible. And Board Member Duncan, mentioned the fact of us getting out and having conversations with everyone, so that's a great segue into what the board's going to do. This year we are going out to our districts with our superintendent, and I have the honor to be the first on September the 3rd to go to Lincoln Elementary School. This is a public service announcement that will be on the website, I'm sure, at 6 o'clock. Dr. Hargens and I will be there for a community conversation. So we look forward to seeing people there at Lincoln Elementary. Again, that's September the 3rd at 6 o'clock. And I would also like to thank the schools. On the first day, I visited 9 of the schools in District 1, had an opportunity to eat lunch with Dr. Hargens at the historic Central High School. And there were so many smiles and so much happiness and excitement that day. Job well done. So that concludes my report. Thank you so much.
I've got a real short one.
Mr. Jones.
Okay. Some of you may have noticed that there are these interesting red peppers up here. I think Mr. Hadaway has some. I don't know if anybody else does. But the board's dinner tonight included the runner-up at the State Fair for the Best in Kentucky, what do they call it? The Kentucky Iron Chef competition from different schools. Fern Creek High School had a team that took vegetables and foodstuffs from the garden at the school, combined them into a wonderful soup, and it was great fun and also delicious. But the larger point is Fern Creek has built a curriculum around food, around community gardening, around the ecology and sort of green elements of where our food comes from, that has been a really critical part of the turnaround of that school and moving it onto what we hope will be a path of continued growth and success. And it was a real pleasure to get to actually be fed by the students' creativity and really great quality.
And it was delicious. It was delicious. Any other reports? Okay, we will move on. We have one person to address the board tonight, and the gentleman is here to talk about the Common Core curriculum. Last name is Barra. Okay, okay. Please join us there. You will have 3 minutes to speak. At the end of 2.5 minutes, a bell will sound once. Okay, all righty. Well, welcome and thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you so much. I think we touched upon two very important topics over here. One was the Common Core curriculum, and other was the blended technology. And I wanted to talk more on those ends. So I have been working with a few students from a couple of schools in the county district. One was the Mazek Middle School, and the other was the Stauffer Elementary School. And over the summer break, we worked with the kids and we trained them on various standards of the Common Core curriculum in math and English. And we used various technologies. We used some blended, some paper pen, all those things. And a lot of community parents got involved as well. And we developed something which was very unique. So one of the things that I wanted to ask the board and the superintendent was that how can the parents, how can the community people like us get more involved and work with the school, the board, the district, so that we can help the kids get prepared, understand, come to their own logical conclusions, and prepare them for the 21st century skills as well as the critical thinking skills on the technology, math, English, and the common curriculum from all those things together. So how can we get more involved? Because there are a lot of parents like us who wants to get involved, who wants to contribute. So what can be done? That's
Dr. Hargens will, she's not going to give you a long list at the moment, but we have your number, and she will in fact get in touch with you or one of the staff to work with parents. We may capture you and people may not see you again for a long time because we need your energy and your passion. So thank you, and Dr. Hargens, we have your phone number, so we thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time and for your energy.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We do not need to have an executive session tonight, so at this time I will have a motion to adjourn. Ms. Westland, second. Mr. Brady, all those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned at 9:07. Thank you.